Hi there, Cameron Conway here, and welcome to episode 3 of Living Beyond Church. Today I want to talk to you about outsourcing God, how good sheep get lost. Now, it's easy for us to say that God is God and I am not, yet our lives and our actions paint a very different story. Over and over we go out our own strength, our own abilities, our own wisdom, and our own insights, and we try and replace God. I'm not saying this is always something we do consciously or willingly, but even as Christians, we tend to put all of our trust upon ourselves, and then we turn to God when things don't work out. We try and fix it ourselves, and the thing breaks, and then we finally turn to God in prayer, rather than getting God involved right from the onset. This is sort of what I talk about when we say we outsource God. We take all the things that He wants to be involved in our lives, and we strip that away, and we do it ourselves. This is why so many of us, our prayer lives are so shallow, and why we don't have a greater impact on the kingdom. It's because we say we believe all these things about God, but when trouble comes up, we turn in upon ourselves and we try and make all the things better. And then when we run out of steam, we finally then turn to God. This is sort of like us acting like a bunch of sheep. Because really that's what God calls us more often than not, as His good, loving, happy, fluffy sheep. But even sheep need a shepherd. Have you ever seen what happens to sheep when they don't have a shepherd? They will overgraze their pasture land. They will roll over and die. They'll fall off a cliff. They'll get picked off by predators because they just don't know what they're doing. Their minds are just so ingrained and trained to, I will find grass. I will walk the same path over and over and over again until that path turns into a hollowed out muddy rut that they fall in, drown, or they just eat all the grass in the area and then they eat up all the sprouts right away and there's nothing left to eat for them. That's why the shepherd comes into play, because the shepherd takes them from that land that's about to become barren and destroyed and leads them to a different pasture. And he continually moves them and moves them, so they continue to have life and fresh sustenance and fresh water so they can live and grow, reproduce and develop and bear their wool. And we can kind of say the same thing with us in God. We like to read Psalms 23 that the Lord is my shepherd, but we get offended when we think that, does God look at us like a sheep? Because sheep are really the most clever animals around. We tend to look down upon them. If we call another person a sheep, it's usually in a derogatory fashion, thinking that they're mindless and simple and they just can't think for themselves. Now, when we say that in the church, we're saying more along the lines of it is our dependency upon God. We can think for ourselves, but we're never as smart as God. We can walk over to another pasture, but it may be the wrong one. It may be covered in vines or weeds or anything that could harm us. We want God to lead us to the right places at the right time. Or we can become so set in our ways that we just take the exact same path through the territory over and over and over again that it just gets rutted out, it turns to mud, and we can get trapped in what was used to be comfortable for us. That path kind of becomes a ditch, it becomes a valley that no longer takes us where we want to go, but it starts to trap us into a place that God doesn't want us to be in. Now, this whole picture of us being sheep and God being the good shepherd, the best place I've seen talk about it is a book by W. Philip Keller called A Shepherd Looks at Psalms 23. It is a great book. I'll put an affiliate link down in the description, and I really recommend you take a look at it to see what our relationship is with Christ. He takes Psalms 23 and he kind of breaks it down into our living relationship with Christ. And that comes back to us being not codependent or overly dependent, but having God involved in our lives in a real and tangible way. Sometimes it's through prayer, sometimes it's through scripture, sometimes it's through acts of the kingdom like evangelism, healing, prayer, and all those other things. But it's about us making room for God so that we don't subconsciously replace Him with ourselves. Because it's easy for me just to kind of go about my own life, doing my own thing. It's a whole nother thing to get God involved, even if it's just in the little mundane things like, what shirt should I wear? Now, I'm not saying you should become superstitious in a Christian way, that you say, I won't put on any shirt until I get a voice from God come through the walls. No, I'm saying that practice by getting God involved in these little parts of your life. It sounds silly, but there's been times in life where I'll be going through my closet one day and God will say, grab a sweater and a pair of boots. I look outside, it's sunny out, what's going on? And every single time I heard that voice and I didn't do that, I always regretted it. The clouds would come, the rains would come, and I'd be really regretting not having my good boots or a sweater that day. But again, these are just little ways we can practice getting God involved in our life so we can become more in tune with that great shepherd. Because Jesus says he is the great shepherd. He wants to bring us life and life more abundantly. But the little catch to that is that we have to be willing to listen to him. It's one thing for us to say and believe that, oh, God will bless us, take care of us, give us all these good and great things. But if we don't believe him, if we don't trust him, if we don't listen to him, then all those good things are just meaningless for us. It is just an empty promise that goes unfulfilled, not because God is unfaithful, but because we are unwilling to follow Jesus the shepherd. Now, with ancient Middle Eastern shepherds, and even some today, they wouldn't stand at the back of the flock with a whip. They wouldn't be kicking them and driving them forward. Shepherds in the time of Jesus would stand at the front of the flock. They would sing out, they would yell out, they would speak out, and then they would begin to move forward, and the sheep would follow after him. So over and over in our lives, we see that Jesus will call out to us, he will speak to us, he will sing to us, and then it's our responsibility to kind of plop ourselves up from off the ground and to follow him to wherever he is going. Otherwise, he'll just go over the horizon and we'll still be left in that same field. And we'll be back to feeding ourselves, taking care of ourselves, hiding from predators ourselves, when all the while we should have been over the hill with the shepherd. And that all comes back to, what are you going to do today about that? Are you going to begin to cultivate a life where you begin to rely on Christ more? Are you going to cultivate a life where you involve God as an everyday part of your life? Do you even know how to do that? Because so many Christians, they have this open idea that as long as they go to church on Sunday, everything will be taken care of. No, this is a living relationship with God. And a big part of that comes from prayer. It comes from studying the scripture. It comes from understanding who you are. That's one of the reasons why I wrote my book, Understanding Who You Are. It's sort of a way to take you step by step through the Bible and show you everything you need to know to be a Christian right here and right now. It talks about even just theology matters. It talks about why you need to know the scriptures, who God is, who Jesus is. Because if you don't know who Jesus is, you'll never recognize his voice. If you never recognize his voice, you can never truly follow him. And if you never truly follow him, then it's so much harder to live a life according to his standards, and it becomes near impossible to have a positive effect for the kingdom here upon this earth. Well, that's all the time we have here today. So remember to hit the like button, subscribe, share this, and in the comment section below, tell me of your experiences where you sought God out and he would lead you in the everyday part of your life. So as always, I'm Cameron Conway from Conway Christian Resources. If you want more information, go to conwaychristianresources.com. I'll put a link for that book I mentioned down in the description. So God bless and take care.